Good afternoon, world. You are here on 87.9 FM The Globe, and you are on Call to Reason with Loveless and Beth. And we appreciate having you here. Now, I want to also remind you, we haven't done this in a while, to find us on Facebook. Call to Reason with Loveless and Beth is our group, and our page is simply Call to Reason. We're also on Twitter at Loveless, the letter N, Beth, all together, Loveless and Beth on Twitter. And we look forward to getting your comments on things that we post. We've had a great time reading your social snarks and your comments and feedback on the stories that we cover. We've been working really hard to bring the finest in stories and guests, and I hope you guys have been enjoying what we've been up to lately with our Urban News Service reports. Those interviews and those guests have been amazingly informative, and that's our job, is to convince you to get out of the matrix and into reality where you belong. We see so much spin and so much non-reality attached to the issues at hand. And one of the things that we've been covering I've been covering over the weekend is this whole phenomena of Ben Carson. Ben Carson, y'all. He has had some amazing challenges with who he is. Well, he's not challenged by whom he is. He's challenged by the fact that he is a loony bin. Andre, he's challenged by the fact that he's a loony bin, because he now says, they asked him was he comfortable with having a Muslim in the White House, since that people are still accusing President Obama of being a Muslim. And, they think that he's wrong for a whole lot of stuff. But at the end of the day, the question was posed, would you, because of this outrage over Donald Trump's the way he just allowed this guy to claim that Obama was a Muslim, and the problem with the country is we need to get rid of all the Muslims. I mean, that's just so not cool. But at the same time, Carson doubles down and says that he doesn't think that anyone in the White House should be a Muslim, and you shouldn't inaugurate a president on a stack of Qurans, but it should only be the Bible. Now, if that is not religious intolerance, I don't quite know what is. And last time I checked, and Ben Carson, here's the funny part, Andre. Here's the funniest part about this whole charade. The funniest thing is that this country was founded, a lot of these Republicans, they walk around with these little pocket copies of the Constitution in their pockets. Okay, so in that same Constitution that they should know does not include religious exclusion, religious discrimination, religious persecution. In fact, our Constitution of these United States of America call for something entirely different than that. The exact opposite, to be more specific. And to imagine that these guys, these Christian zealots, and folks, let's just be clear, I'm a Christian myself. I'm not disclaiming the Christian faith. I'm fighting for it, actually, as a Christian who wants to have other Christians join me in living like Christ did, not like this ultra-conservative, delusional, made-up form of so-called Christianity that most of you are hanging your hats on. And so the struggle is real, because this country, first of all, was based and founded on the principle of separation of church and state. And on top of that, it outlawed religious persecution. Yet, since the beginning of this nation, overzealous religious Taliban have been attacking religious freedom in America, the very fabric of the Constitution, one of the threads that holds the entire Constitution of America together is religious freedom and freedom from religious persecution and freedom from religious discrimination. That is one of the threads that literally holds our Constitution together. And yet, since the beginning of this country, since before there was even a Constitution to hold the country together, we saw religious persecution or persecution of people based on religious imposition or the imposition of religious doctrine in society. And it's been going on for 400 plus years in America. So we have to stop pretending, folks. Let's take that everybody grab the water. Let's take a red pill. And let's realize that since the beginning of America, since before it was even officially America, when it was still 13 British colonies, religious persecution, religious discrimination, the imposition of oppression and the seizing of others' freedom, of others' right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of their happiness has been constantly bombarded and constantly infiltrated on society in this land called America since its beginning, y'all. Y'all forgot the Salem witch trials? Y'all forgot the way the Quakers shut down like all of Pennsylvania and part of New York? The Amish are still with us to this day. And all of these religious organizations, all Christian based, have been the American Taliban for over 400 years in this land we call America. So stop acting like religious persecution, religious discrimination, the same folks who are howling loud like a wolf caught in a trap. Arr, arr. They're the same folks who've been around over 400 plus years trying to dogmatically beat us over the head with their dogma and their demagogue and force their religion down everyone's throat in a way that would not have any regard for neither life, nor liberty, nor the pursuit of happiness. It's been going on for 400 years, y'all. So stop, first of all, acting like this is something new. Christians, stop acting like you are under attack. We all see through the fact that this is a reverse psychology attack move on your part. But for what? I challenge my fellow Christians to ask yourself, for what? This is not how Jesus would be behaving. Matter of fact, all Christians who really want to live like Jesus should stop what you're doing in this moment. Take a brief moment of silence for yourself and resolve inside yourself to follow the example of Christ by standing up to, pointing out to every individual human being on earth that you know and come into contact with in a conversation about Christianity, and stand up and be ready to fight what we know for sure is the Jesus industrial complex. You know, Brother Dre, we talk about the military industrial complex. We talk about the prison industrial complex. We talk about the conflict agitation industrial complex. We don't talk a whole lot about the Jesus industrial complex. And that's a thing where trillions of dollars get raised, quote, in the name of Jesus for, quote, community. And very little of that actually trickles down into community, None of it gets paid into taxes in ways that could offset the cost of social services programs in the public sector. And it essentially is a system of monopolized greed that allows mega churches and prosperity pastors and others to run rampant through the minds and hearts of poor, vulnerable people and rake in trillions of dollars and not really be in a position to be held accountable whatsoever for fulfilling the mission on which their nonprofit status is founded and granted. And so for me, that's a huge problem. It always has been. And until we get ourselves in touch with reality and unified to stand up to the Jesus industrial complex, we're going to be continuously bombarded with all these types of psychology that are attached to the Jesus industrial complex. And Beth just walked in, and she's already grinning because she's heard the newest call to reason hashtag and our newest social phenomena distinction that, and folks, let me just say, we pride ourselves here at Call to Reason for being able to make concrete new distinctions in society and societal behavior and assign a name to them. I mean, somewhere along the way, Beth, I feel like somebody is going to give us a couple of honorary doctorates in social sciences because of how we come up with these things. Because we now, you know, we've been documented and recorded as pointing out the distinction of the very subtle but hugely powerful conflict agitation industrial complex. And we now have made the distinction of the Jesus industrial complex. Because if you look at the numbers, if you look at the stuff that John Oliver has dug up, if you look at other information that we see ourselves, when you look at the Creflo Dollar request for $65 million jet, that is what I am coining the Jesus industrial complex.
I think that is the appropriate coined termed phrase. When you have, you know, and especially when you have the Pope speaking out about this, you know, just last week we were talking about how the Pope laid down the hammer and just said, look, you do not deserve a 501c3 tax status if you're not helping the needy.
Right. So I just wanted to touch on, I've gone on a rant, and that, by the way, folks, was my humble LJ 3 cents for today.
Oh, so humble.
The Jesus industrial complex is dangerous. And if we don't do something about it and stand up as Christians, those of us who see through it and want to live more like Jesus did, which means love each other, follow that one commandment that he gave, we got to stop all this stuff done in his name. Real Christians have to stand up and say, no more, no more. We're going to take a short break, and we're going to come back, Beth, and we're going to talk about Ben Carson and his desperate attempt to take charge of the Tea Party reins with his outlandish comments on the fact that he doesn't think that there should ever be a Muslim as president of the United States. He's getting a lot of feedback, all right, but some of it he's not going to like on the other side of this break. You are on 87.9 FM The Globe, and you are with Loveless and Beth on Call to Reason.
87.9 The Globe.
Well, Ben Carson, he's a weird bird. As we know, Carly Fiorina's been kind of emerging in the polls a bit, and she has really had some striking rise in the polls. It scared the living living daylights out of a lot of folks, and she has displaced Ben Carson as the solid number 2 person in the Republican polling behind Trump. And before I really go into Carson, I want to make a side note about how weird and comical it is that people are surprised with how the poll numbers are starting to move around and bounce around a bit in this Republican primary. Folks don't remember that this is how it goes. You get a summer leader, you get a fall leader, you get a late fall leader, and then things start to actually solidify as you get really closer to voting time of caucuses and primaries. But Donald Trump's meteoric rise is starting to fade. He's down, I want to say 8 points in the last poll. And Carly Fiorina is up 12, and she has bypassed Ben Carson by a point. And so Trump is down to 24. Carly's at 15. Ben Carson is at 14. And, outside of the amazing nature of Carly Fiorina's rise is probably the shocking fall of Scott Walker, who has gone from leading in Iowa to being the last person on the list with an asterisk, which means you've polled less than 0.5%. So Ben Carson, feeling the pain of that shift, is trying to hold on to his position, and he wants to get back above Carly, or he wants to stay solidly in that top 3 and keep his stance strong. So he said on television yesterday that he thought that under no circumstances could there ever be president. He would never support a Muslim for president, and he doesn't think that there should ever be a time when someone took the oath of office on a Quran instead of a Bible. He said he did not. In fact, he responded to the question in an interview, and I want to say this was George Stephanopoulos asked him the question. He basically said he would not advocate that we put a Muslim in charge of this nation. I absolutely would not agree with that. And then when asked if a candidate's faith should matter to voters, he said he guessed it depends on what that faith is. If it's consistent with the values and principles of America, then of course it should matter. Now, what religion is consistent with the principles and values of America? When did we issue a patent on that to a certain religion?
The whole thing is just ridiculous. And even Alison Camerota from CNN called Carson out on this when she was interviewing a conservative radio host. His name is Armstrong Williams. And when she was interviewing him over Carson's comments, he says he said of Carson, he understands there are tenets of Islam that hates Jews, will kill homosexuals, will kill Muslims, do not advocate the belief and value system that made America into the country it was today. Now, folks, the value system that America was built on was that we had freedom to choose what religion we wanted and had the freedom to not choose any religion at all. And so Camerota pointed out that, there are more American Muslims than there are Episcopalians. And she also said that, let me read you Article 6 of the Constitution.
Now, wasn't that priceless? That moment, and I'm glad you brought that story up because that was part of the 2 that I wanted to cover.
Well,
was it not priceless when she read him Article 6 of the Constitution?
It was awesome. But this is also someone, this reporter, you and I, this is the one along with Don Lemon who took Reza Aslan to task about the treatment of women in Muslim countries. And we wailed on them pretty hard. So it's interesting that it's Alison Cameruda that is sort of giving the what for to this guy about the possibility of having a Muslim president, and how the Constitution actually does not say what proper faith someone can be in order to run for president. It's just not in there.
No, it isn't. And as I said before you came in, we act like this debate and this discussion is some sort of new crisis in America, when in reality, for all the hype that the media and the right-wing Christian zealousy has perpetuated on and bombarded us with as the only information that was quote unquote credible, their disdain for Islam and those Islamic extremists who would force their Sharia law and belief system and interpretation of their doctrine on general society. Beth, I hate to tell you, but, the Taliban got that whole operating manual and that whole operating procedure straight from the shores of what we call the U.S. of A. Okay? How do I know? Go back to the Salem witch trials and ask me how I know. The imposition of religious dogma on others in general society in America has been going on since before we had a constitution on these shores. And so it's now they're all crying foul now, claiming that they're the ones being attacked. But we've had an American Taliban since before we had an America. Do you get that?
Yes.
So I say, folks, once again, it's second only to prostitution. The Jesus industrial complex is that old in America.
I'd like to bring us...
It's an old industry.
It is an old industry. And Cameruda pressed on to explain what Article 6 says, which is that anyone of any religion can serve in public office. Quote, no religious test shall ever be required as qualification to any office or public trust under the United States. And she goes on to say it's actually Dr. Carson's belief that violates that part of the Constitution.
Bing, bing, bing,
Bam.
bing, 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 bing. That is correct, folks. There's a red pill moment for you. A little bit of reality. Ben Carson is desperately attempting to grab the reins of the Tea Party faithful by being a leader in the cause of the Jesus industrial complex. And in this regard, he's using the narrow viewpoint of Christian zealots to separate society into groups so that he can capture the votes that he needs to win what will surely be a Tea Party controlled and dominated Republican nomination process. It's obvious that the Tea Party is driving the bus here because Donald Trump has been thriving, and the candidates that are actually winning, the top three, are all Tea Party darlings. Let's not forget who these people are. They are far right wing nuts. They appeal to the crazies in the Tea Parties, and guess what? As the Tea Parties took Congress over in 2010, they certainly can do it again. But this time they can take over the Republican nomination and put up some ticket that is to their best liking. And it's going to have this kind of American Taliban-based philosophy of governing. Is that your America? Not mine, Beth.
It's not mine either. There's a lot going on today that is not my America.
Well, let's go right on to the next one and keep that train rolling.
So apparently this comes to us from Andrew Pollock from the New York Times. Apparently a specialist who's a hedge fund manager purchased a drug used to combat HIV. And the drug was $3.50 an hour, or $13.50 a tablet. He raised it to $750 overnight.
A dose overnight, and he claims it's used so little that in order to sustain it, it has to go up. What an idiot!
I mean, this is why we need universal public health care in the United States, because this sort of greed and just piece of excrement style ethics around people and their health care it's just disgusting.
It is bizarre.
And this is a life-threatening disease.
It is bizarre. It is bizarre, you guys. It is a life-threatening disease. It is bizarre that no one somebody ought to do something about that. That's all I can say. I mean, I believe in the free market economy, but not to the detriment of people. That's why I don't believe the companies should be given the opportunity to run willy-nilly through the environment and destroy anything they feel like in the name of a dollar. And I don't feel like pharmaceutical companies who are using, by and large, the compounds that God created in the form of plants and other compound organics to create pharmaceuticals, should they be exploited that way? $750 a pill?
I mean, why $750 if they need? I mean, they could have doubled it and it still would have been somewhat affordable to people. I mean, this is crazy. So specialists in infectious disease are protesting this. According to the New York Times article, Dr. Judith Aberg, she's the chief of the division of infectious disease at Icahn School of Medicine in Mount Sinai. She asks, what is it that they're doing differently that has led to this dramatic increase? And it can force hospitals to use alternative therapies that don't have the same efficiency. Mm-hmm. It's disgusting.
So what do we do? What would you if you were president? What would be the first thing you would do to attack that, Beth? How would you deal with that?
There has to be some sort of mandate on life-saving drugs, and people cannot be in debt or be denied these drugs if they need them. And if you're going to charge $750, you're also going to be required to give the drug to anyone who can't afford it for free. I mean, this is insanity.
I don't think he's going to cover his bet with that move. I mean, I understand the business principles behind it, but I don't think he's going to cover his bet.
Well, apparently this isn't the first time this has happened. According to New York Times, most of the attention on pharmaceutical prices has been on new drugs for diseases like cancer, hepatitis C, and high cholesterol. There's also growing concern about huge prices on older drugs, some of them that are generic, that have been around and have been mainstays of treatment for some time. I mean, this particular drug that treats... this drug is called Daraprim, and it was it's used to treat parasitic infection, and it's a 62-year-old drug. It's not a brand new drug, and it's been, before it was bought by this hedge fund dude. Apparently $3.50 an hour was just fine for the company, the pharmaceutical company that had it before. I mean, obviously things go up in price. You have to make adjustments for inflation, but you can't price people out of saving their own lives.
No, and I mean, what is the justification for that kind of hike. I just don't get it.
Here's another one, cycloserine, a drug that's used to treat dangerous multi-drug resistant tuberculosis, was just increased in price to $10,800 for 30 pills.
How much?
$10,800 for 30 pills from
What?
$500 after its acquisition by Rodellis Therapeutics.
$10,800 for 30 days, up from $500. What percentage of increase is that? Like 20,000%?
Something like that.
Or 200,
200%.
2,000% increase? 2,000% increase.
Yeah.
That's ridiculous.
So apparently Congress is investigating generic drug price increases. And they wrote to Valiant Pharmaceuticals that the company acquired two heart drugs, Isuprel and Nitropras, from Marathon Pharmaceuticals and promptly raised their prices by 525% and 212% respectively. Marathon had acquired the drugs from another company in 2013 and had quadrupled their prices. Senator Bernie Sanders, of course, the Vermont independent who's seeking the Democratic nomination for president, and Representative Elijah Cummings, Democrat of Maryland. So, of course, it's like two Democrats. This is not going to go anywhere.
No, it's not going to go anywhere, and there won't be any Republicans to sign up for that. But again, America, ding, 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 wake up.
Y'all
because guess what? When it becomes your family affected by these evil, diabolical Republican policies and their inability and unwillingness to come to the table and do something that is in your best interest as opposed to the industrial best interest that they have been purchased by, you are going to continue to get the same results. We are going to continue to get the same results. And guess what? Right now, we're screwed.
Well, I just suggest that everybody call their U.S. senator and their U.S. congressperson and complain about this. Senator Bernie Sanders, Representative Elijah Cummings, they are incredible watchdog style for consumers, elected officials, but it falls on deaf ears if they don't have, if Republicans don't have the ears of their constituents.
If the Republicans don't lend their ears to their constituents.
Yeah, that's right.
That's what they're not doing. Their ears are only available for lobbyists and big industrialized folks who control the world.
Yeah.
And so we the people is what's really under attack. And folks, the government is us. We are America. And all these attacks on people with blatant disregard for the fact that it is people that actually make what America is, make America what she is today, was made by people. The greatness and exceptionalism that we can claim in certain areas, we can do so because of people. Right? Beth, right?
Yes.
I mean, so what's really under attack here is we the people. Folks, don't you get that? We the people are under attack. And we got to stop allowing us, the people, to be distracted and divided away from our own collective interest in order to feel more special because we're part of the cool kids in the cafeteria who happen to control everything. And we think that they're for us too because they let us sit at the table every now and then.
Well, I tell you what, I mean, if this gets reported on widely and people get really upset about it, this is one of those issues that can pave a broad path for Bernie Sanders to do very well.
I think we should keep ourselves informed about developments and look for other instances, Beth, of this kind of thing, and keep talking about it here on Call to Reason and keep posting about it in our social media. And folks, if you haven't had a chance to check it out, we have got a brand spanking new, vibrant YouTube channel. And starting next week, we will be broadcasting live on YouTube video. So we'll be live streaming on YouTube. And until then, we'll be recording every one of our shows so that you can listen to them in full at will on YouTube. But you'll also be able to hear these distinct discussions that Beth and I have on particular topics. So you'll be able to have a full library at your on-demand disposal if you aren't able to tune in live with us here. And we'll continue to educate you more about that. But yeah, just go to YouTube and look for the channel Call to Reason. And we are there, and we are having a good time bringing that information to you and making sure that you can stay in touch with us here on Call to Reason and comment and participate on the things we do.
You mentioned, is this My America? Pricing people out of life-saving drugs is not My America.
No, it's not My America, and it's not the America of anyone who ends up being affected by this. And at any given moment, y'all, it could be me, it could be you.
So this guy is a former hedge fund manager, and his name is Martin Shkreli. I think I just mutilated his last name. But he's the founder and chief executive of Turing Pharmaceuticals, which raised the price of the drug Daraprim from $750 a tablet from $13.50 a tablet. Now, in Georgia, just a very few years ago, there was a waiting list for HIV drugs, and we were losing. There was one particular gentleman that I talked to who was on his way. He was on his way to heaven, quite frankly, because they were so late getting folks their drugs. This is killing people. Essentially, this guy has the blood on his hands of anybody who does not get this drug.
So to all the Republicans who complain about the Obama death squads that were part of Obamacare, Republicans have their own form of secretly hidden but very well supported and very open market for pharmaceutical pirate death squads. Because that's what this is. They allow this in the name of so-called free enterprise for these pill pirates to swoop in, and if people end up dying because of their pillaging and looting, so be it. It's legalized murder is what it is. Thanks to the Republican Party and their commitment to quote-unquote free enterprise. We'll see you on the other side of the break. You're still here on 87.9 FM, and you're on Call to Reason. Well, we're back right here on Call to Reason with Loveless and Beth, and we're on 87.9 FM The Globe. If you want to call in, since we've got this big booming signal now, we know people are listening all the way out in Lithonia, up in everywhere, down south, out west. So call in, talk to us, 404-444-1984. Let us know what you're thinking and jump into one of these conversations we're having. Beth has just uncovered another bombshell story about a really just despicable practice going on in Afghanistan that apparently the American military has been looking the other way on from our beginning involvement there, and to the point, looking away to the point of allowing our own soldiers to die because they oppose it. Beth, why don't you tell us what's going on?
So in 2012, Dan Quinn was relieved of his Special Forces Command after a fight with a U.S.-backed militia leader who had a boy as a sex slave chained to his bed. In addition to that, in Kabul, there is a gentleman by the name of Lance Corporal Buckley Jr., who told his father that something had been troubling him. I should mention that this comes from, once again, from the New York Times, and this article is by Joseph Goldstein. So, Lance Corporal Gregory Buckley Jr. told his father, while he was in Afghanistan, that he could hear Afghan police officers sexually abusing boys that they had brought to the base. Quote, "At night we can hear them screaming, but we're not allowed to do anything about it," unquote. The Marine's father, Gregory Buckley Sr., recalled his son telling him before he was shot to death at the base in 2012. So this soldier died after conveying this message to his father.
Has his assassin been arrested? Have they convicted or prosecuted the shooter, the murderer of this soldier? Or Marine, I should say.
It seems that they have not. It seems that they have not followed up, or if they're investigating, that it has not come to any conclusion at all.
An unsolved mystery, an unsolved murder on a military base.
This occurred in Afghanistan.
But on a military base, yes. Okay.
Some of these abuses are taking place on military bases. The article doesn't mention specifically where the corporal was murdered. It just doesn't say. Mm-hmm. So apparently, rampant sexual abuse of children has long been a problem in Afghanistan. According to this article, the armed commanders who dominate the rural parts of the country bully the population. The practice, there's actually a name for the practice, bakabazi, which literally means boy play. And American soldiers and Marines have been instructed to not intervene, in some cases not even when their Afghan allies have abused boys on military bases, according to interviews and court records. This is, Loveless is always asking the question, if this is my America, if this is our America, this sure as hell is definitely not my America. And I just think about, brave officers who brought this to the attention of their superiors only to be told that they must look away. It causes my stomach to turn. So there's another story in the same article about another officer. His name is Dan Quinn, a former Special Forces captain who beat up an American-backed militia commander for keeping a boy chained to his bed as a sex slave. But we were putting people into power who would do things that were worse than the Taliban did. That was something that village elders voiced to me. The policy of instructing soldiers to ignore child sexual abuse by their Afghan allies is coming under new scrutiny, particularly as it emerges that service members like Captain Quinn have faced discipline, even career ruin, for disobeying it. So they're actually disciplining soldiers who report it and who try and prevent it from happening.
And again, in the instances where we, the people of America, stand up to do something that does represent American exceptionalism,
exactly,
we're punished, because the captain and the others who have put their careers in jeopardy and at risk, and in some cases ruined them, over the moral principle that child sex slavery should not be allowed as a general practice, and nor should it be endorsed by any official American representative, and especially anyone from our military, whose certainly mission is not to perpetuate and support the proliferation of sexual slavery of children, in particular, of anyone, really,
disgusting.
But especially children. And so when good Americans try to exemplify what should be American exceptionalism, they're punished.
Well, according
That's
to
not my America, Beth.
no, according to the article, that after the beating, the Army relieved Captain Quinn of his command and pulled him from Afghanistan. He has since left the military. 4 years later, the Army is trying to forcibly retire Sergeant First Class Charles Martland, a Special Forces member who joined Captain Quinn in beating up the commander. Quote, the Army contends that Martland and others should have looked the other way. A contention I believe is nonsense. Representative Duncan Hunter, a California Republican who hopes to save Sergeant Martland's career, wrote last week to the Pentagon's Inspector General. This is disgusting.
I'm sorry, folks. I almost just kind of threw up in my mouth a little bit just then. Gosh, I don't understand how we're not hearing more about this. Why do the Trumps of the world get so much ink and air when this kind of egregious injustice goes on under the American banner on our watch? And shame on President Obama for not having more fortitude to know. Certainly they
just need to lay down the hammer on this.
I mean, I'm ashamed of President Obama if he knows anything about any of these cases and has not. I'm disappointed, sir, if you have not pointed this out and brought justice to these kinds of injustices. Under no circumstances, I mean, I understand cultural sensitivity, but we can't build a military base somewhere and allow child sex trafficking and sexual slavery to go on.
Well, I'm sorry.
For anyone's culture. If it's an American base, then that's theoretically American soil, and that's not the American way.
Even if it's not, I'm sorry, but sexual slavery does not belong in anyone's culture.
It doesn't belong in anyone's culture.
And if we do not stick up for those kids, we're responsible. We are responsible.
That is correct. And so kudos to the captain for demonstrating real American exceptionalism by standing up for moral ground that is universal. Under no circumstances is sexual slavery, in my mind, should be a culturally accepted practice, particularly of children.
You know what that is? That is oppression. That's not culture.
Yeah,
that's oppression.
It's what they call it, slavery.
It's like saying that keeping women from voting in some of these Muslim countries is culture. It's not culture, because in plenty of them, women are able to vote and participate equally. This is not Muslim culture. This is oppression.
Right.
And this is something in the United States. If we can't stand against that, then we don't even belong there.
That's right.
We don't belong there. So the article goes on to quote a former Marine Lance Corporal saying, the bigger picture was fighting the Taliban. It wasn't to stop molestation. I'm sorry. You have the blood of those kids and the innocence of those kids on your hands.
That's right.
If that's how you're prioritizing.
That's right.
Situation.
You've got the stolen innocence of those children.
We can both fight the Taliban and do what's just for people. We can.
And how can you credibly say you're fighting the Taliban if you've got teammates that you are condoning who have behavior that's worse than the Taliban? How is that mission accomplished? It's not mission. Again, that's not my America. And I doubt there's anyone who listens to this show on a regular basis whose America it would be either. I don't know anybody in my life whose America that is. Do you?
No. And it's not even, according to this article, it's not even a part of the culture of the people who live there. The American policy, according to this article, the American policy of treating child sexual abuse as a cultural issue has often alienated villages whose children are being preyed upon. So you can, if that's the case, it isn't a part of culture. You know what it's a part of? It's a part of these soldiers oppressing and abusing these children.
Yeah, it's a part of abusive militarist. It's a part of abusive militaristic culture.
Yes.
It's not a part of the general society's culture.
That's right.
And that distinction certainly should be made by our military, and it should be dealt with appropriately in our military policy.
Listen to this.
We should have a manual somewhere that says this is what you do when you come across child sexual slavery and child sexual exploitation.
I don't believe in violence, but I'm down with Captain Quinn and Sergeant Martland and what the solution that they came up with, which was to beat this
whooping
dude
a little
to
butt.
Yes.
Yeah.
By the summer, according to the article, by the summer of 2011, Captain Quinn, Sergeant Martland, both Green Berets on their second tour in a northern province of Afghanistan, began to receive dire complaints about the Afghan local police units they were training and supporting. Folks, it is not Afghan culture to take on boys as sex slaves. It is the brutality of our allies who are, I guess, assisting us against the Taliban in Afghanistan. But I don't even want our soldiers there if they can't prevent this from happening. It seems like we can both be against the Taliban and be against child sexual abuse and sex slavery.
I could not agree more. We could both be against sexual slavery of children, and we could effectively battle and suppress the Taliban. This is not an either or conversation in my mind, and shame on our military policymakers, and shame on the Secretary of Defense, and shame on President Obama for allowing this to go forward. You guys had to have known in all this time, and certainly the Bush-Cheney folks knew. They're the ones that set our initial social and cultural protocols and interactivity in that area with their invasion. And so they went in and established from the ground up a policy of American pacifism and neutrality when it comes to these kinds of egregious behaviors. It was, my granddaddy used to say, how you start the car is how you drive the car. And so we started the car with allowing that kind of just disgusting behavior. And but
I don't know why they're there.
Shame on Cheney and Bush and all the folks who set us up over there and allowed this to happen in the beginning, and shame on President Obama,
absolutely,
for not jumping in there and fixing that among the other parts of the mess that they have been successful at repairing. I'm ashamed to say that we've had two presidents now who are equally culpable for this kind of disgusting behavior to be allowed to continue. I'm ashamed of the country for this.
Captain Quinn is my hero. According to the article again, as village elders grew more upset at the predatory behavior of American-backed commanders, after each case, Captain Quinn would gather the Afghan commanders and lecture them on human rights. Soon, another commander absconded with his men's wages. Mr. Quinn said he later heard that the commander spent the money on dancing boys. Another commander murdered his 12-year-old daughter in a so-called honor killing for having kissed a boy. There were no repercussions, Mr. Quinn recalled. And these are the people that were backing in Afghanistan.
Yeah. Like I said, that's not my America. And shame on, I'm ashamed to say that as an American, we've had two presidents who have allowed this kind of disgusting behavior to occur and to allow these things to happen on our watch. This is not my America, folks. And I'm pretty sure it's not yours either. Or if it were, email us your address, and we're going to have somebody come out and shove a red pill down your throat. Okay, because this is not who we are over here.
So the father of Lance Corporal Buckley believes that the policy of looking away from the sexual abuse was a factor in his son's death, and he's filed a lawsuit to press the Marine Corps for more information about it. Mm-hmm. So we'll see what happens. But this is a really long, in-depth article. Again, this was from the New York Times, and it is the author, the reporter who wrote it, also my hero. is Joseph Goldstein. This was from yesterday.
We'll circle back to them in Champs and Chumps today, I'm sure. Coming back on the other side of the break as we wrap up, we're going to hear from Beth, who on this Monday has to tell someone pretty stupid to shut the hell up. We're also going to talk about another thing that President Obama's got going on that I'm not particularly happy with. For all my folks out there who swear I'm an Obama sycophant, I'll show you once again why I'm not on the other side of the break as we talk about what's happening with his ISIS strategy. I don't like it, and there's some real facts about why you shouldn't either. We'll see you on the other side of the break. You're right here on Call to Reason with Loveless and Beth, and you're on 87.9 FM.
The Globe.
It's the Global Network One. Some are copycats. We are the big dogs. The Global.
Well, we're back right here on Call to Reason with Loveless and Beth. And Beth, we do you want to tell them now or do you want to tell them later? But everybody wants to know who is gonna shut the hell up today.
Who's gonna shut the hell up today? Well, I think that the military, the Marines in charge of this policy where, you know, they're telling their soldiers to look the other way while boys and while girls are being raped. There was another story about a 14-year-old getting raped and then forced to marry her rapist. And, you know, this practice of our so-called allies, it disgusts me to even call them that, the military allies having boys as sex slaves. Obviously, I mean, I don't even want to bother to tell the Afghan military to shut the hell up because I'm just going to tell the U.S. military who is in charge of telling our soldiers to look the other way when clearly they don't want to, and that they want to save these kids. Our military can shut the hell up. Quite frankly, our president can until we do something about this. I do not see why we cannot fight the Taliban and fight for the rights of these children at the same time. So they can shut the hell up.
Bravo. They sure can. And that's a big ditto from me. This is just...
my stomach is turning.
I mean, it's one of these situations where you really deep down inside wish you could just wave a magic wand and...
I wish I could just bring all the kids here and take care of them.
That's what I mean. You could just wave a magic wand and disappear all the children at risk from that place and bring them somewhere where they can be safe and flourish and grow into their full potential, as opposed to being traumatized to the point of ruin before they're even 15 years old. It's pretty sad, y'all. Beth, on a little bit more local note, it looks like the climate, thanks to the awful work that the Georgia state legislature has done over the years and the governors have done over the years with the Hope Scholarship and the value of the lottery money that was originally designed by Zell Miller and those legislatures of the day to enhance educational opportunities for our young people here in Georgia. And they've gotten the whole thing screwed up to the point now that the beleaguered Hope program is going to perhaps be saved by the introduction of casino gaming and horse racing here in Atlanta. And the MGM hotel and casino operation has made some major moves to soften the climate here in Georgia. For that, they've gotten some major supporters in the form of Governor Nathan Deal and Atlanta Mayor Kasim Reed, who has assured the business community that he's going to clean up Peachtree and Pine and rearrange all that stuff down there. I think Mayor Reed is creating what I'm calling Atlanta's casino corridor. Because if MGM cracks the door and gets it in, then you've got tribes from out west that can come to Georgia and purchase whole city blocks. And then now they're Indian land, so now they can build, a casino. We could have Indian. I mean, there are tribes that are recognized in Georgia that could open casinos throughout the state, much like they have in New Mexico and in Arizona and Mississippi and other places. And so don't think that MGM building a shiny, bright building that recreates downtown Atlanta as what's the only thing that's going to happen. I think it's going to go way farther than that, and it is going to generate a ton of money. But will our legislature screw that up even more or yet again, or will the money actually be used to put the Hope Scholarship program back on solid ground?
It seems to me that the Hope Scholarship is beleaguered with every year. They want to gut it, tinker with it. When Zell Miller
change the rules.
When Zell Miller was governor, his vision for the Hope Scholarship was that poor children who earn B averages, or any kid, not just the poor, but then it was any kid who earned a B average should be able to get to go to school for free. And originally it was children from needy families, kids from needy families.
Right.
But in order to pass the legislation, they had to include everybody so that it was going to be a merit system.
Okay.
And what has been happening year after year after year, and there are both Democrats and Republicans to blame for this. They have been raising, so it's no longer a B average. The kids have to have an A average. And essentially what is going on is that it makes it harder and harder for kids specifically from rural schools, kids from schools that are in poor areas, to earn a Hope Scholarship anymore. And what is really going on is that upper middle class families who, are really involved in their kids' school life, the families who can afford to, have parents attend every PTA meeting, every parent-teacher conference, like all of the wealthy parents, all of the upper middle class parents are able to guide their kids to the average that it needs to be now for them to have a Hope Scholarship. And so what's ending up happening is that the Hope Scholarship is now the upper middle class scholarship so that parents can buy their kids a car for graduation. It's a car scholarship now for the upper middle class. And it's, to me...
So it's basically now limited to the folks who really don't need it in the first place.
Exactly. It's been gutted. That's how badly it's been gutted.
Well, hopefully, an extra $10 billion a year to play with will bring it back into alignment so that the poor kids can go to college too. Because right now the system is broken. And I just find it fascinating that they're looking to just dig deeper into the rabbit hole of gaming to fix it that they used to create it in the first place. And what I find the most comical about the whole thing is how the conservatives, who ultimately will support it because they'll be bought off, have to try to tote the religious morality water for a short while, to put up appearances, of course, that, to make it seem like they're still fighting for old-fashioned family values here in Georgia when they're ready to sell us down the river to the first casino willing to write a check.
I mean, that could be the best possible outcome, is writing the Hope Scholarship. But anytime any motion is made in order to include, to make it more inclusive towards people who are needier than the other kids, somehow it gets... I don't see I hope that the new gaming laws, or I hope that the new casinos cover up or help make up for the difference that the families who are more needy, who need more assistance in sending their kids to school. I really hope that this makes up for it. I think that would be a good use of that money. But I think that the people who are in power just get greedier and greedier with where the money in the budget goes, and it never goes to the people who need it the most. And I don't trust, they can talk about it all they want. So maybe, hopefully this doesn't make it the, upper middle class new car scholarship plus, a year of their kid finding themselves scholarship in Europe. I mean, that's what I just don't have any faith that this money will go to who it needs to go to. And by the way, I'm not against casinos and gambling and bringing that into town. I think it's a good source of revenue. And, I do worry about addiction, and I do worry about people who can't afford to be gambling. But I also believe in free enterprise, and other states do it. And I don't have a moral issue with gambling if it's done responsibly, but it does end up making poor people poorer. And the best possible outcome would be that whatever we've lost in Hope Scholarship would go to the kids who need it the most, and not continue to go to upper middle class families. But I'm not going to hold my breath.
Yeah, and I'm not either. I don't think that they're going to get displaced in this process, but we do hope that justice for everyone else can come as a result of, what surely I think is going to be the most rapid capitulation of the so-called high moral ground in Georgia history. I think that much like the groundswell rose and the wave of public support washed over the state of Colorado over the legalization of recreational marijuana, I think that same groundswell and wave are going to sweep over Georgia when it comes to legalizing casino gaming and horse racing here in the state. I think out of nowhere, it's just going to come in, get done. That's Georgia now. And I believe that it's a gateway to legalizing marijuana in more forms here in the state as well. Once you get gambling, you got to get the dope in here. Because, that helps.
I just don't know how you can.
It helps the tourism trade. Imagine have a casino in downtown Atlanta with a fine marijuana dispensary inside the hotel. That would be just off the chain.
It would be. I don't know how you can be an elected official and not see what's going on in Colorado and not think about all of the things that could happen that would be positive for the state by legalizing it here.
According to the state of Colorado's law governing their marijuana legalization, and I posted this article week before last, and I'll find it, and we can talk about it more on We Watch Wednesday. But Beth, according to this article, and I read it so intently, I still remember great parts of it, but here's the most notable part. The way the Colorado law was put together caps how much tax money they can keep in the state coffers. And once they go past the amount of money that they're allowed to keep as tax revenue in the state bank account, they then start dividing up everything else and giving it back as part of the state tax refund to everyday Coloradans. So they're estimating that every Colorado taxpayer come 2016 when they file their taxes are going to get back over $500 a family from marijuana tax revenue is going to come back to the people. So not only is the government of Colorado maxed out on all the tax money they can collect to benefit their state, they're now turning around and giving their taxpayers increased refunds from the weed revenue. So that alone is an indication of how successful and what results in reality have come from the legalization of recreational marijuana in Colorado.
I don't see how the entire country isn't going to be able to. I don't. We now know that there was an article not too long ago that was published that where scientists have proven that pot prevents cancer.
It does.
We all knew that it helps people with cancer in terms of comfort and peace of mind, and also with their appetites if they were going through chemo. But now we have legitimate studies that show that marijuana prevents cancer.
Well,
how can you keep this away from people if that's the case, particularly if they have a history of cancer in their family?
And again, if you're an American and this is your America, please take your red pill today and get in touch with the fact that this is a country whose constitution begins with the phrase, "We the people." We the people. We the people. So it's all about us anyway, and the government should be all about us. And let me tell you something, even though we know that in reality, the entitlements that Republicans and conservatives and all these other wingnuts claim are things that need to be addressed first as we repair the economy and the budget of America. In reality, those things make up 3% of federal spending and don't even need to be considered. We don't even need to look there when we talk about how we can fix and get our budget back in alignment with American priorities. Now, but that being said, if we made marijuana legalized in America and taxed it the same way we do gasoline and cigarettes and alcohol, the weed tax revenue could pay for every single entitlement program we currently have on the books. We could pay for school lunches with weed money. We could pay for health care to expand Medicaid for poor children with weed money. We could not spend a nickel of taxpayer dollars coming from individual income tax returns on any entitlement if we legalized marijuana nationally and began taxing it at the federal level also. So why not do that? Because we could resolve the gaps in Social Security. We could resolve Medicare, Medicaid. We could resolve school lunches. We could resolve SNAP and other food benefits. We could completely reshape society by just letting people be who they are and truly allowing this to be a land where everyone is allowed to pursue life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness.
So listen to this. According to the National Cancer Institute, on the front page of their study, one of the major bullet points of the study says, cannabis has been shown to kill cancer cells in the laboratory.
Boom. That's it. And so again, folks, it's not going anywhere. Obviously, there's enough people doing it now such that Colorado can give complete tax refunds to citizens just based on that much money pouring in. And we should take note of that. And we should look at how else we could resolve some of our budget gaps and realign our spending and have revenue to tackle things that don't continue to burden the income tax payer in America. We should be looking for ways to lessen the income tax burden and put the focus on consumption.
Why don't we also reduce the cost of health care?
That's correct.
We're preventing
but that's
cancer,
a part of that. Again, anything we can do so that we, the individual people, we the families, we the people, can have our burden reduced and shift that to behavioral patterns in society and shift that to how people are consuming, we'll all have more to consume and our economy will be strong and grow. That is sound policy in my mind. That is my red pill reality check for today. And we're almost at the end of the show, Beth. It goes by so fast when you're having fun. let's go ahead on and go to champs and chumps before we get out of here. Who's your champ today? Who's your chump?
I have a few champs today. One is the late Lance Corporal Gregory Buckley Jr., who tried to blow the whistle on the Afghanistan child slave scandal, along with two other officers, Officer Martin and Sergeant Martland and Captain Quinn. Those are my champs for trying to do the right thing for kids in Afghanistan. My chump is this idiot ex-hedge fund manager who bought the drug that assists HIV patients and changed the price overnight from $1,350 to $750. This guy, he's my chump, Mr. Shkreli. Shkreli. I can't pronounce his last name, but yeah, it's he needs to shut the hell up, and he's my chump.
Okay. Yep. So we got to get out of here, folks. We got to get out of here, and but I'm gonna tell you real quick. My champ is Pope Francis, and my chump is still Kim Davis. You sucker. She's going back to jail, y'all. We'll see you again tomorrow here on Call to Reason. We've got Hablemos Negocios coming up next with Lance and Lily, and Ben talking business in English and Spanish. You stay tuned. You're locked in right here to Call to Reason. We'll see you tomorrow, and we hope you enjoy the rest of your day. You're on 87.9 FM The Globe. We'll talk to you tomorrow. Bye, Beth.
Bye, Loveless.